Alright, so hello everyone. I'm Gabriel. You all know me already. So I'm going to break down to you the Iran war and why it was inevitable. So I think you've already heard what is circulating around the news and the media already. This Iran wars, uh, little girls getting bombed, schools getting flattened, Iran military bases getting melted by US and Israeli bombs. Ayatollah is dead. 6 American soldiers already killed, and lots and lots of damage in Iran, the UAE, and Israel in specific. So I'm going to read. So okay, starting off. Number one, I have to start with, how do I say this? Operation Ajax. Now, for those of you who don't know what Operation Ajax is, this was basically a military, not a military operation per se, but a covert operation started by the US and British to overthrow the president of Iran, the elected president of Iran back then, who was Mossadegh. So why did they do this? Why did they plan to overthrow him or assassinate him even? Well, this was because of, how do I say this? Oil and communism. So I think you know about the Cold War if you're a history student. So basically, when the Cold so basically Mossadegh basically nationalized the Iranian oil industry, which harmed British oil interests and led to quite a stunt in the British economy. So what happened next is that basically the British and Americans got together and just decided to overthrow this guy, and also because they thought that he they thought they it was perceived that he was going to be aligned with the Soviets, who, if you don't know, the Americans and British really hated since they were like in like an ideological battle with them, the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics. So what happens after that is that the Shah, called Reza Mohammad Pavlani, is installed. And what does he do? He starts, he basically doesn't care about the local civilians. What he does is he throws a party that costs so much that it just further exacerbates the the, the already terrible economic situation of Iran. Basically, for world leaders to show why Iran is like, oh yeah, we can throw this party. We are a strong nation that with a lot of culture. But what it does, it just throws Iran in even more economic turmoil. And he basically massacred civilians for protesting against him. There was a lot of restrictions on rights. Civil liberties were lost. The economy was in total chaos. People were poor. People were hungry. And you know one thing: take away bread and entertainment, the people will revolt. And the people didn't have bread. So what happens next is that Reza Pavlani is overthrown. That who Remember, this guy was installed by the infidel Americans and British, as the Iranians like to say. And then what comes next is that Iran is now governed by an extremist Islamist regime under under a new how do I say this? An Ayatollah Ayatollah. So basically, now, because Iran, like in 1979, this regime of Reza Pavlani was overthrown and replaced by the Ayatollah. So what happens next is that Iran feels like, oh my, the Iranians like want to seek revenge. So you see the Iranian hostage crisis. Them funding these terrorist groups such as Hezbollah, and then Hamas as well. Basically, a lot of stuff goes down. Iran wants to have a revenge on the West for what they did to them. So this also exacerbates the fact that the West is reactive. This doesn't just lead to the West doesn't just sit by. They come and bomb Iran and their terrorist groups, as what happened in 2025 and 2026. This was inevitable according to me, because first of all, the Americans, they came in, installed a dictatorship that the Iranians didn't like after they had a good democracy, and now Iran is now in another dictatorship, subjectively worse. And now they start a war, a holy war against the West, and then it has all ended up in this, a holy war. What I mean is that they just bombed. They funded terrorist groups which bombed Western bases, bombed Israel, and then it all just ends up with this. This was inevitable. It started from the West having greedy interests, and it has ended with thousands dead. This is just how the world is. Okay, thank you for listening.